Namaste. What is Vedanta? How would my life change if I studied Vedanta? I should like to begin with a few counter questions before I lay out my response to the two questions. Question 1. What is the primary purpose for people to send their children to school? People would usually answer this question by saying that they would like their child to receive good education, become a postgraduate, study medicine, engineering, astrophysics, and so on, wouldn't they? Question 2. How far do parents usually want their children to go in their education? Do they want their children to stop their education after, let's say, primary school, or do they want them to continue further into secondary and higher secondary school, graduate, and attain much higher levels of formal education? Almost all parents would certainly want their little ones to do higher studies and grow into highly learned individuals. Question 3. Now imagine a teacher in your child's school who talks students, including your child, into stopping learning further and remaining in primary school forever. Would you be pleased with what the teacher is doing, or would you speak to the school authorities to ban the teacher from coming into contact with your child and the others? You would certainly make sure that such a person does not teach your child, wouldn't you? Question 4. Would someone who needs to undergo heart or brain surgery settle for an amazingly bright and intelligent young person who has always been the country's best in subjects such as biology and chemistry, but is a pupil of, let's say, grade 5 or 6 in school? Or would the patient look for a highly qualified and experienced surgeon to perform the required surgery? It is rather typical of people to look for the best surgeon in town, or if need be also in foreign countries. Question 5. That being the case, how and why do people allow themselves and their children to be made to believe in imaginary non-existent beings and things? They go to such an extent that they surrender about 50% of their mental capacity to some non-existent entity who they believe would take care of them. The answer to this can be given in one word: duality. Here, I'd like to cite a certain video of Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arshavidya Gurukulam. I have embedded the video in a post of mine titled, "Why Should One Study Vedanta?" The link to the post is given below in the description. I cannot resist mentioning that my birthday is the same as Swami Dayananda Saraswati's, which is the 15th of August. He has been a person whom I deeply admire and revere as one of the best teachers of Vedanta in modern times. So what is duality, which I personally hold responsible for all the confusion in the mind, fears, anxieties, envy, hate, violence, superstition, wars, and all the nonsense as well as brutalities in the name of religion? Duality can be simply interpreted as God and I, which means that there is someone or something called God that is distinct from me, or also the world and I, meaning I am separate from the world. The two extreme states of mind that a person who is convinced about the existence of a separate entity called God are as follows: a perennial state of fear, of inadvertently going against the commandments of that God, being in a constant state of total mental slavery to one or more fictional beings. In such a state, a person who believes that he or she is a sincere devotee of God simply resigns to the will of God, ceases to perform work, and expects God to perform miracles and improve their lives for the better. Now, it is considered normal in religious families to raise their children by infusing in them strong belief in a supernatural, superior being, which would give them whatever they prayed for. However, what needs to be noted is that doing so would deprive them to learn to take responsibility, use their mental ability to think, discover, invent, create, and above all realize that their self in them is the very same all-pervading self, which is confused to be a separate entity due to the false ego and the boundaries of the skin. I recently came across a video of some famous religious leader who has millions of followers. He was describing in a highly vivid manner what happens after death, but the person is still alive and is saying all that as a living person. He said that the mind first withdraws from the senses, after which it snaps out of the body, and the dying person experiences freedom. What follows is that the sight gets blurred, the sense of touch and taste goes away, and so on. Wow. I'll tell you about my own experience of being on the edge, particularly in one situation just after a major motorcycle accident I had. It was a sunny afternoon when I lay on the road in a pool of my own hemoglobin-rich sanguine fluid, but still conscious, and could realize that my entire right side, starting from my jaw, my right arm to my right leg, was badly damaged. The severe loss of the vital sanguine fluid, I do not wish to use the other word to avoid any possible element of gore in my description, gave me the feeling that the I in me was being sucked out of my body through my throat, and I was tending to spread into the atmosphere like the way smoke spreads. My mind was pacing at jet speed. I had visions of major events in my life flashing across my mind. On one hand, the natural survival instinct was trying to help me think about what I should be doing in order to get help. But on the other, my ego, supported by my inherent passion for adventure, encouraged me to stay alert and really experience the actual once-in-a-lifetime moment of passing. So please remember that when I speak about life and death, I, as a person who has been almost there, not once but multiple times, speak from my experience. Dualistic ideas taught and spread by self-styled fake babas and gurus, such as there is a separate being called God in some place called heaven, and each soul is different from the other, completely destroy the natural instincts and intelligence in children. Dualism is harmful and extremely dangerous. A very harmful effect that a dualistic approach to life and existence as a whole is the risk of developing a victim attitude. What usually happens to people with such a dualistic mindset is that when things do not go their way, they believe that it must be the effect of an external force, such as God or any other non-existent entity that is causing them trouble, or that they are punishments for their wrongdoings. Such a situation, when a person feels victimized by some external force, external source, creates the perfect setting for the entry of agents of God in their lives. They're usually in the form of self-styled babas who come have a better connection, who claim to have a better connection with God, and they teach certain rituals and so on to save the person in trouble, and they say that God will respond to their prayers. An essential point to be taken into consideration here is that duality is not entirely wrong, because it happens to be one of the lower rungs of the ladder towards self-realization. Just like a child needs to go through elementary, primary, secondary, and higher secondary school before entering college to study medicine and become a qualified doctor, a child begins with a dualistic approach towards Krishna to finally realize that the self is in every being is no one but Krishna, who is the personification of the all-pervading self, or Brahman. The confusion is created by certain spiritual teachers who not only refuse to proceed into higher stages of spiritual evolution, but also prevent their followers from evolving. They force people to be like children who stay stuck in lower levels of education and do not proceed forward. Here is something utterly basic, yet astoundingly profound. Let us take two W's, namely the what and where, from the five W's, which are what, who, when, where, and why. Who is God and where is God? As far as it stops with the who, it is fine, because we could work on answering it. But the moment you ask where God is, the entity called God that you're talking about is no more the greatest and the highest. Why? Well, think about it. Our Father in heaven. Who are we talking about? Our Father, all right. And where is the Father? In heaven. So which is larger, the Father or heaven? Father in heaven, of course, means that heaven is where the Father is, and therefore heaven is larger than the Father. Similarly, Shiva and Shakti reside in Kailasha. Yeah, Kailasha is larger. Vishnu resides in Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is larger than Krishna. All such misunderstandings emerge from duality and from not comprehending the allegory in Vedic scriptures. Brahman or Krishna is all-pervading. Here is another question. What is it that is all-pervading? The sky, space. And that is where everything exists. All the galaxies, including our Milky Way, the solar system, and our dear Mother Earth, exist in the all-pervading space, which is known as Brahman and personified as Krishna. Tvamadi devaha purushaha puranaha, tvamasya vishvasya param nidhanam, vettasi vedyam cha param cha dhama, tvaya tatam vishvamanantarupa. This was Shloka 1138 from the Bhagavad Gita. You are the primordial self. You are the primordial supreme being, the ancient personality, and the supreme resting place of the universe. You are the knower as well as the knowable. You are the supreme one with infinite forms, and the entire cosmos is pervaded by you. The whole of existence, space or sky, is Sat. Now the mere existence of space or the sky can't do much without the awareness of Sat. And such awareness, consciousness, or knowledge is Chit. Sat and Chit form the whole, which is known as Brahman and personified as Krishna. You surely come across people, especially Babas with painted faces, long beards, and funny clothes, narrating to you tale after tale about the relationship between Krishna and Radha, haven't you? The other day, I came across another ridiculous video in which a self-styled young monk of some large organization was explaining why the eyes of Jagannath, the presiding deity of the Jagannath temple in Puri, were so big, and how the deity always looked with his big eyes at his devotees. Most of such self-styled monks preach to gullible and poorly informed innocent people that they could ask Krishna for anything and that he will fulfill their wishes. And why do they get away with such things? It is because people simply love to listen to stories, which is perhaps a childhood fascination that has stayed on into their adulthood. And now ask yourself, how many people teach Advaita Vedanta, which is the highest and the all-encompassing science of all the sciences? The masses are equally responsible for the spreading of childish stories and superstition as dharma. Some ill-informed people call it a religion with a name given by foreign invaders and even have TV debates over the name, which has nothing to do with the core essence of Vedanta. So what happens when you study or even learn the fundamentals of Vedanta? A person who merely begins to learn Vedanta will first get to understand that the God or supreme being that he or she has been told to believe in all the while is not something that is distinct from them, but is the self in them, and that they need to neither please any such God nor deity, because there is no such separate being. They would also comprehend that there is no need to be worried of antagonizing some God or incurring his, her, its, or their wrath. This straightaway removes all fears and other unnecessary intellect-binding negative emotions. There is no one or no separate being up there or out there. It is the whole of existence, and that which is all-pervading, that has been personified in myriads of forms and are known by many names. Learning Vedanta through the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The 18 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita are in 3 sections of 6 chapters each. The first section consists of chapters 1 to 6, which teach the Karma Marga. The second section, which consists of chapters 7 to 12, teaches the Bhakti Marga. The third section consists of chapters 12 through 18, through which Krishna teaches Arjuna the Jnana Marga, or the path of knowledge. However, in shlokas as early as 246 and 438, Krishna enlightens Arjuna with the fact that knowledge is the highest stage of spiritual evolution. I'll give you a simple description of the 3 margas, or paths. 1. The Karma Marga. Begin by performing your duties with no attachment to their results, and with social responsibility as your guiding factor. Refer to shlokas 147, 320, 325, 525. 2. Bhakti Marga. Being that rare true seeker who realizes Krishna's universal reality instead of dissipating one's focus by setting their mind on various deities and other points of attention. Refer to shlokas 719, 724, 924 to 32. Performing work as a sacrifice unto the all-pervading supreme divine principle known as Brahman and personified as Krishna. Develop absolute focus without allowing any diversion of your attention. Whatever you do, do it as a sacrifice unto the all-pervading supreme divine principle known as Brahman and personified as Krishna. Refer to shlokas 927 and 1115. Realize the all-pervading divinity known as Krishna and the equality in the divinity of all beings. Refer to shlokas 518, 1123 and 1155. Jnana Marga. Realize that the Supreme Brahman is all-pervading and is the same self in all beings. Refer to shloka 246 and 438 before going into chapters 13 to 18 in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Learn to become one with Krishna. Shloka 1866. The equality of all beings, all living beings, 1327 to 28 or 28 to 29 in certain editions. Those who realize their divinity are people with divine qualities. Krishna says in Shloka 438 that there is nothing more purifying than knowledge. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram eva vidyate. And such knowledge can be acquired through Vedanta. When you begin to learn the fundamentals of Vedanta, you will begin to realize how childish and blind to such spiritual knowledge you've been all the while. Above all, the moment you even begin to acquire the fundamentals of Vedanta, you will experience a pronounced improvement in the general state of your mind. You will be less irritable, less afraid, less anxious, and more peaceful. Just think how wonderful it would be if all were in such a state of mind. Living with a dualistic mindset and drowning oneself in meaningless rituals is like a child that refuses to go beyond primary school, grow and evolve. That's what Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Let the shloka 724 of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita keep you constantly aware and alert and safeguard you from falling into a dualistic idea of Krishna. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mama buddhaya param bhavam ajananto mamavyayamanuttama. Foolish people who do not know my formless, exalted, imperishable and supreme nature think I assume a manifest human form. That's what Krishna says in so many words. Vedanta is the highest stage of acquiring knowledge, after which there will be nothing more to learn. Krishna says in Shloka 702, Jnanam deham savijnanam idam vakshyam yasheshataha yajñatva neha bhuyo nyajñatavyam vashishyate. Krishna says, I will now clearly explain to you this phenomenal knowledge and also its realization, after which there will be nothing further remaining to be known in this world. If you ever attain the ability to perceive the same Sri Venkateshwara, Sri Guruvayurappan, or Udupi Krishna to be all-pervading, which means he's the same as yourself and the self in all beings and present everywhere, you can be sure that you have arrived. That's it for now. Until next time, stay blessed. Jai Shri Krishna.